No one expected it. No one even imagined it. But last night, something happened that shook the entire industry to its core. Something so unbelievable, so unpredictable, that even the most dedicated fans froze where they were standing. Drake, yes, Drake, made the call no one ever thought he'd make. Out of nowhere, out of pure tension, out of the quiet pressure building for months, he reached for his phone and dialed the one number the world knew he'd never dial. Kendrick Lamar's, because this wasn't a friendly check-in. This wasn't a casual "how you been" moment. This was the kind of call that stops time, the kind of call where even the walls of the studio hold their breath. Drake didn't speak calmly. He didn't speak confidently. He spoke like a man who knew something bigger than music was on the line. And Kendrick, the way he answered, the tone in his voice, the cold stillness behind every word, it sent a chill straight through Drake's chest. For a split second, it felt like the entire culture was listening in to giants, to forces. Two unmatched energies colliding in a moment the world wasn't supposed to hear. Insiders say the tension was so thick, you could feel it through the walls. Something in Kendrick's voice didn't sound normal, it didn't sound angry, it didn't sound forgiving. It sounded like a man who knew exactly what was coming next, and then, in a voice colder than the pause before a storm, Kendrick gave Drake an answer that no one on earth was ready for. A response so sharp, so unexpected, so explosive, that the moment he said it, the room around Drake fell absolutely silent. And now, the entire world is asking the same question. What did Kendrick say? And why did it shake Drake this hard? Long before that phone call ever happened. Long before the world started refreshing their timelines like their lives depended on it, this story had already begun. It didn't start with a diss track. It didn't start with a bar. It didn't start with a line hidden in a verse. It started years back, when two different energies entered the same universe and everybody just knew one thing: eventually, they were going to collide. Drake was already a superstar, a global figure, a name Thaddeus across arenas long before anyone knew what kind of storm Kendrick Lamar was about to bring. Drake had confidence, rhythm, timing, charisma. He knew how to own attention like it was currency. He could walk into a room and shift the temperature without opening his mouth. The industry loved him. The fans adored him. The algorithm practically bowed to him. And then there was Kendrick. Quiet, sharp, calculated. A thinker who didn't chase the spotlight. The spotlight chased him. He wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. He didn't need to be, because his silence carried more weight than most artists' entire discographies. People used to whisper things like, "Drake owns the crowd." But Kendrick owns the culture. Drake makes moments. Kendrick makes movements. Drake is the show. Kendrick is the shock. They were two different universes rotating in the same sky, and fans waited years for the day those universes would collide. Every mixtape, every interview, every guest verse, people hunted for subliminal that weren't even there. They built rumors out of nothing. They analyzed smiles. They slowed down clips. They amplified every tiny detail until it became a headline. And the craziest part? None of it was enough. Because no matter how much the world speculated, the truth was simpler. These two never needed to openly clash. The tension existed naturally. It was written into their careers before they even realized it. Drake came from the world of connection. Fans felt like they knew him. Kendrick came from the world of isolation. Fans felt like they were studying him. Drake talked to the world. Kendrick talked at the world. Drake wanted to be heard. Kendrick wanted to be understood. It was never hatred. It was never anger. It was never personal. It was destiny. Even in the early days, people sensed it. When Drake dropped a hit, fans would say, Imagine Kendrick on this. When Kendrick dropped a verse that ripped through the timeline, fans would tweet, "Drake's definitely watching this right now." They weren't competing, but the world wanted them to, and slowly the tension built on its own. A look here, a quote there, a line that sounded slightly pointed, a bar that felt slightly aimed, even when the meaning wasn't there. The world created one. Producers whispered about it behind closed doors. Radio hosts hinted at it. Podcasters exaggerated it, and fans made entire narratives out of thin air. They turned separate careers into a rivalry. They turned silence into shade. They turned timing into tactics. And then came the live moments, the ones nobody forgets. A look Drake gave during an award show performance. A moment Kendrick paused during a freestyle. An interview where Drake hesitated before naming his favorite lyricists. A conversation where Kendrick smirked when someone mentioned competition. It was nothing, absolutely nothing, but two fans. It was gasoline the pressure built every year. Every album, every appearance, every small move, people started choosing sides in a war that didn't even exist yet. Team Drake, Team Kendrick. Drake runs the charts. Kendrick runs the pen. Memes, debates, fake leaks, imaginary quotes, everything kept adding layers to a rivalry. Neither man had officially started, but the moment that changed everything wasn't a diss. It wasn't a bar. It wasn't a statement. It was the night Drake dropped a track with a line that fans swore had a certain tone. And Kendrick dropped a verse months later with a certain energy, and suddenly, boom, social media detonated, even though neither name was mentioned. The world decided the game had begun from that day on. Every move they made, whether real, imagined, exaggerated, or completely random, was interpreted as strategy. If Drake posted a picture in the studio, fans said, "He's cooking something for Kendrick." If Kendrick showed up at an event, fans said, "He's preparing a response." If Drake unfollowed someone, fans cried, "It's starting." If Kendrick went silent, fans said, "This is the calm before the storm." It was madness, pure madness. And both artists watched it from their corners, pretending they didn't notice. But secretly, they noticed everything. Years passed like this, a cold tension, an invisible thread tying them together, never snapping, never loosening. Then came the turning point. The moment nobody talks about openly. A private industry dinner months back, where both artists ended up in the same room for the first time in years. Nobody knows what happened. Nobody recorded it. Nobody leaked anything, but the people who were there whispered one sentence. The way they looked at each other, something shifted. Some say Drake nodded first. Some say Kendrick didn't react. Some say the room went silent. Some say it felt like the air got heavier. Whatever happened, it planted the seed of the phone call that would eventually shake the world. The call that would stun the fans, freeze the timelines, and push both men into a moment bigger than ego, bigger than music, bigger than rivalry. The night Drake finalealed Kendrick's number was destined years before it ever happened. Even before Drake ever picked up that phone, something inside him had been changing. Something subtle, something slow. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't fear. It wasn't insecurity. It was the pressure of expectation, the kind that builds so quietly that you don't even notice it until you're standing in a room at 3 a.m. realizing you haven't slept in 2 days. People had been watching him and Kendrick for years. Every post, every lyric, every reaction, no moment was small enough to escape the spotlight. A challenge, and Kendrick, sitting across the country at a piano in a dim room, writing lines nobody had heard yet, sometimes felt the same thing. Not competition, but an invisible pull toward a moment he couldn't quite name. Their careers were oceans apart, yet their shadows kept touching. It wasn't hate, it was destiny. A slow-burning, silent, unavoidable destiny. People close to Drake noticed it first. His engineer once said, "You've been pacing more," his photographer said. "You've been posting less." His friend said, "Bro, you quiet? Everything okay?" Drake would smile and say, "All good." But deep down, the call was growing inside him. A call he didn't want to make. A call he wasn't ready for. A call he didn't even understand yet. Meanwhile, Kendrick's circle saw the shift to Dot. His producer said, "You've been writing differently." His assistant said, "Your energy feels heavier." A stylist said, "You look like you're preparing for something." Kendrick would shrug it off, smile slightly, say nothing. But inside, he knew something was tightening, not tension, but timing. Then came the night everything tipped. A small moment. A coincidence? Nothing major. Drake was in the studio scrolling through a timeline full of Kendrick discussions, theories, predictions, fan wars, debates, rumors. The same noise he'd seen for years, but this time, something clicked differently. A fan tweeted, "Imagine if these two just talked." One call could change everything. For some reason, that line hit Drake harder than anything else had in years. Not because he agreed, not because he disagreed, but because suddenly, for the first time ever, he wondered what would happen if he called. What would Kendrick say? What would the world do? Would the tension end? Would it explode? Would it shift the culture entirely? That question didn't leave him. It followed him into the car, into his house, into his quieter thoughts. Even when he tried to ignore it, it echoed. What would happen if you just called? Across the country, Kendrick was in a quiet room, flipping through pages of old notebooks when his phone buzzed. A friend sent him a link to the same tweet. He stared at it for a few seconds, not because he cared, not because he agreed, but because he felt something strange for the first time. The moment people had been predicting for a decade was finally starting to breathe. Neither of them talked to the other. Neither messaged. Neither prepared, but a silent countdown began for both men, and neither could stop it. Days passed. The tension grew thicker. The energy became heavier. And then, that night came. The night Drake stared at his phone four-way. Too long. The night he scrolled to a name he'd never touched. The night his hands shook, not from fear, but from uncertainty. The night he exhaled deeply and pressed call. Everything that happened after that, the tension, the shock, the impossible answer, started right here. The moment two destinies finally collided. With one ring. The moment that call connected. The air around Drake shifted like the room itself suddenly understood the weight of what was happening. He didn't speak at first. He just listened to the silence, a heavy, cold silence that felt strangely controlled from Kendrick's side. It was the kind of pause that didn't happen by accident. The kind of pause that meant something. Then Kendrick finally breathed. Not a word, not a greeting. Just a slow, steady breath. And somehow, that breath alone felt like a challenge. Drake swallowed, forcing himself to speak. "Yo, we need to talk." There was another pause, longer, sharper, more unsettling than the first. Kendrick didn't respond immediately, and that silence pierced deeper than any lyric ever could. Drake tried again. "Look, you know what's been happening online? You see the chaos." This whole situation, Kendrick cut in with a voice so calm it felt surgical. "I see everything." Drake froze. Not because the words were threatening, but because they were honest. Kendrick wasn't confused. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't caught off guard. He had been watching quietly, patiently, like someone observing a storm. From the center of it, Drake exhaled slowly. Then you know why I'm calling. Another silence. Then Kendrick said something that made Drake straighten up instantly. Do you? Drake's eyebrows tightened. What's that supposed to mean? Kendrick said, you're calling because you think a conversation will calm the world. But the world's not the one shaking. Drake felt that. Deep down it wasn't an insult. It wasn't a jab. It wasn't even said with attitude. It was said as a fact, blunt. Clean, undeniable. And that was worse. Drake took a step back. You think I'm calling because I'm scared? Kendrick said nothing. But the silence answered for him. Drake's voice tightened. I'm calling because this whole narrative is getting out of hand. People twisting everything I do, everything you do, and you think I didn't expect that? Kendrick replied quietly. Drake couldn't believe the tone. Bro, the internet is on fire. Fans think something's coming. They think you're planning Summit, Kendrick interrupted again. They think what I let them think. That line hit Drake harder than anything said so far. Because it was true, the profile picture, the timing, the silence, the tension, none of it was an accident. Drake rubbed his forehead. Look, man, I'm trying to talk like adults. If we're going to end this, we need clarity. Kendrick finally spoke with a colder edge. Who told you I wanted clarity? And that? That was the moment the conflict flipped. Drake's entire expression changed. So what? You want tension? You want the world thinking something's happening between us. Kendrick replied instantly. I don't control what the world thinks. But I understand how they react. Drake stepped closer to the phone. What does that mean? It means, Kendrick said softly, you called me too late. Drake froze. The words echoed in the room like a door slamming shut. Too late for what? Drake asked. Kendrick didn't hesitate. Too late to stop what's already moving. Drake's heart skipped. What's moving? You'll see, Kendrick replied. Drake's pulse jumped. Kendrick, what are you planning? Kendrick didn't answer the question. Instead, he said something far more chilling. You're calling to stop chaos. I'm calling to understand it, Drake whispered. Bro, what are you talking about? Kendrick took a small breath, then delivered the line that shattered the floor under Drake's feet. You didn't call because of pressure. You called because you finally felt the shift. Drake clenched his jaw. Shift in what? Kendrick paused, and then said the words that detonated Section 3 in Who the World is Watching. Drake froze. His manager froze. Everyone in the room froze. Kendrick's voice stayed steady. You can try to calm the noise, but you can't calm momentum. Then a sound. A quiet click. Kendrick ended the call. Just like that. No warning. No goodbye. No explanation. Drake stood there stunned, the phone still in his hand. His breath stuck somewhere between disbelief and anger. His engineer whispered, "What did he say?" Drake didn't answer. He couldn't, because the twist wasn't the phone call. The twist wasn't the silence. The twist wasn't the tension. The twist was simple. Kendrick wasn't running from the chaos. He wanted Drake to feel it. And he succeeded. But the real shock was still coming. Something happened seconds later. Something that would flip the internet upside down for the next 48 hours. The moment Kendrick hung up, something shifted in the room so violently that even Drake's engineer swore the temperature dropped. Drake just stared at the phone, still pressed against his ear, like he couldn't believe someone had the audacity to hang up on him. Not the superstar, not the chart king, not the man who carried entire summers on his back. But Kendrick wasn't playing reputation. He wasn't playing politeness. He wasn't playing who's bigger. He was playing timing. Drake finally lowered the phone slowly, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from a pressure he couldn't categorize. His manager whispered, Bro. What did he say? Drake didn't respond. His brain was replaying that final line over and over like a glitch. You felt the shift. The shift. And then the biggest shock. Kendrick seen leaving studio minutes after mystery call. A blurry photo hit the internet, Kendrick stepping out of a building. Hoodie up, head down, looking like a man who had just dropped a bomb. Drake's heart nearly stopped. His manager grabbed his phone. This is from 2 minutes ago. Drake whispered, "How? Who's posting this?" The manager shook his head. "Doesn't matter. It's viral." Comments were going insane. "He dropped something. He just finished a verse. I know it. Look at his face, bro. He's cooking." Drake better be ready. This is about to be historic. Drake stepped closer. "This picture is fake. It has to be." His manager zoomed in. "It's not fake." Then another notification hit. A famous industry insider tweeted, "Kendrick was in the studio tonight. Something major is coming." Drake's face went cold. Because Kendrick had just told him, "You can't stop what's already moving." And now the world was seeing exactly what he meant. But the biggest twist hadn't dropped yet. Another post popped up, this one from a verified producer account. "Kendrick just recorded something insane. You don't want to sleep tonight." The internet blew up instantly. Drake's engineer whispered, "Bro, he planned this. He planned this whole thing." Drake clenched his jaw, his heartbeat punching through his chest. Then the real shock dropped. Leaked 3-second audio clip. Just 3 seconds. No words, no beat. Just a distorted laugh. Followed by silence. Fans lost their minds. Kendrick laughing before a verse. "Nah, this is war energy. Bro, this is about to break the internet. Drake needs to move fast." Drake's hands shook with anger. Where did that clip come from? His manager stared at the screen. It's spreading everywhere. People think he recorded something after the call. Drake stepped forward. "He's not dropping a diss," his manager whispered. "Maybe not. But the world thinks he is." And that was the real twist. Kendrick didn't need to drop a diss to shift the balance. He just needed the world to believe one was coming. Drake grabbed his phone, breathing hard. "So what now? I'm supposed to just sit here while he plays with timing." His manager didn't answer. He didn't need to, because Drake already knew. If he responded too fast, he looked desperate. If he stayed silent, he looked scared. If he dropped something, it looked forced. If he didn't drop anything, it looked weak. Kendrick didn't trap him with a diss. He trapped him with uncertainty. The producer leaked the laugh on purpose. The picture dropped at perfect timing. The world spun into panic. And Kendrick? He hadn't said a single public word. That was the twist. Kendrick triggered a full internet explosion without dropping anything. Drake's chest tightened. He whispered. Almost to himself, he played the whole world. With a laugh. But the scariest part wasn't the clip. It wasn't the picture. It wasn't the tweet. It was the notification. Drake saw next, the one that made his stomach drop completely. Breaking. Kendrick's team scheduling an emergency session tomorrow. Emergency session. For what? Drake's manager looked at him slowly. "Bro, I think he's about to make a move." Drake stared at the screen. Let him. But his voice didn't sound confident. It sounded like a man who just realized. The game had officially started, and he wasn't the one who made the first move. The news didn't even have time to settle before the Nets piled into total chaos. Emergency session. Those 2 words alone were enough to send millions of fans into a frenzy. What did it mean? A track, a statement, a strategy meeting, a rollout. Nobody knew. Nobody needed to know. The mystery was more explosive than the truth could ever be. Drake stared at the notification like it was a countdown bomb ticking in his hands. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. He just stood there as the noise from outside the studio windows started to rise. Literal fans gathering. Reporters showing up, drones buzzing overhead. The whole world watching his building like history was about to happen inside it. His manager whispered, "They're already outside." Bro cameras, fans. Everyone's waiting. Drake looked at him with a coldness he hadn't shown all night. "Waiting for what?" "For your next move," the manager said softly. That was the moment Drake realized the truth he never wanted to admit. He wasn't controlling the timing anymore. He wasn't controlling the narrative. He wasn't controlling the conversation. Kendrick was. Not with a diss. Not with a verse. Not with a statement, with silence and a 3-second laugh. Drake walked toward the glass window overlooking the city, watching the flashing lights outside, the silhouettes gathering, the voices rising. He put one hand on the window. "They think I'm scared," Drake whispered. His manager stepped beside him. "No, they think you're waiting." Drake shook his head. Waiting is worse. Meanwhile, across the country, Kendrick sat alone in a dim room, the only light coming from a single lamp above him. Not recording, not writing, just sitting, completely still, completely calm, as if the storm outside didn't involve him at all. His phone buzzed with non-stop notifications, clips, reactions, fan theories, all ignored. He leaned back, breathing slow, almost meditative. His producer finally spoke. "Bro, you know what you just caused, right?" Kendrick didn't look up. "I didn't cause anything. Are you serious?" The producer laughed nervously. "You broke the whole internet with one laugh." Kendrick finally lifted his eyes. And for the first time that night, there was a tiny smile, not big enough to be cocky, but just enough to show he understood the timing perfectly. "That wasn't a laugh," Kendrick said quietly. "That was a reminder." Reminder of what? The producer asked. Kendrick whispered that silence isn't weakness. It's control. Back in Toronto, Drake turned away from the window and walked back into the studio booth, shutting the door behind him harder than he meant to. His engineer looked up. "You want to record?" "No," Drake said sharply. "I want to hear the clip." The engineer hesitated. "Bro, that's not a good idea." "Play it," Drake demanded. The engineer swallowed and hit play. 3 seconds. Just 3 tiny seconds. A faint distortion. A quiet breath. A cold, almost amused laugh. Drake closed his eyes. That wasn't a diss. That wasn't an insult. That wasn't even directed at him, but it was enough to ignite the entire planet. Drake opened his eyes slowly. "This is nothing," he said, but his voice cracked, not from fear, but from frustration he couldn't hide. His manager leaned in. "It's not the sound, bro. It's the timing. It's the fact that it dropped seconds after he hung up on you." Drake clenched his fists. Because that was the real twist. Kendrick didn't leak the clip to attack Drake. He didn't leak it to start a war. He leaked it to control the room before the war even began. It was psychological, strategic, calculated, and it was working. Suddenly, Drake's phone rang, but not from Kendrick. From someone bigger. A legendary producer. Someone both camps respected. Someone who rarely called anyone at this hour. Drake answered immediately. "Yo." The voice on the other end was calm but heavy. "I don't know what's happening between you two right now. But whatever this is, it's about to get out of control." Drake said, "It's already out of control." The producer sighed. "Then you need to understand something. Whatever Kendrick is doing, he started it days ago." Drake froze. "What?" The producer lowered his voice. "That laugh clip. That wasn't recorded tonight." Drake's entire body stiffened. Kendrick had been preparing the moment long before the call. Drake walked into a game that had already started. The call wasn't the beginning. The call was Kendrick's. Green light, a signal, a cue, a trigger that put everything else into motion. And now the world believed Kendrick was about to drop something massive, even if he never planned to drop anything. All that was the first twist of Section 3. The war didn't start when Drake called. It started when Kendrick decided the world was ready. And now Drake was the one trying to catch up. Meanwhile, across the country, Kendrick watched the same trailer, calm, collected, unbothered. His producer, on the other hand, nearly threw his phone. You see this? They're making money off a beef that doesn't even exist. Kendrick took a sip of water. It exists now. The producer froze. You're not serious. Kendrick looked at him, eyes narrowed, quiet, calculating. I didn't create the fire. I'm just letting it burn. Back online, the trailer caused total chaos. People commented, "The beef is real now. Bro, they got clips." Next episode is about to be wild. Kendrick vs. Drake is the biggest thing this year. The documentary announced it would drop at midnight. The same time the laugh had leaked the night before. Drake's chest tightened. His engineer whispered, "Bro, this was planned. All of it." Drake stared at the screen, whispering, "They're using me. They're using him. They're using the fans." Then his manager said something that froze the room. What if they're not just using you? What if they're trying to force a moment between you two? Drake turned slowly. Force? How? The manager held up his phone. Some anonymous insider, leaked a fake track list for a Kendrick song titled The Call. 12 tracks, fake features, fake producers, fake dates. But the world didn't need confirmation. They snapped it up instantly. People were screaming online, "This is a response album." The Call. The Call? Bro, this is about Drake. Kendrick is about to end everything. The title alone is wild. Drake felt sick because he knew Kendrick didn't release this. Kendrick didn't post it. Kendrick didn't hint at it. Someone else was pushing them into a clash. Someone else was dragging their names into promos. Someone else was building a narrative strong enough to shape public belief. And then, Kendrick's producer called Drake's manager. Nobody expected it. The call connected. "Why is your side leaking fake stuff?" Kendrick's producer asked. Drake's manager shot up. "Our side. We thought you were doing this. Our side didn't leak anything," the producer said. "Well, neither did we." Drake's manager fired back. Both men went silent. Both sides realized the truth at the same time. Someone else was spreading leaks. Someone else was planting rumors. Someone else was fueling the fire, and it wasn't a fan. It wasn't a troll account. It wasn't a random page. This was too coordinated. Drake stepped closer. "Ask him something." The manager gulped. "Let me ask you straight. Did Kendrick plan any of this?" A long silence. Then Kendrick's producer said in a low voice, "Kendrick didn't plan it, but he saw it coming." The line punched Drake in the chest. Saw it coming. Saw what coming? The producer continued. He saw someone building this narrative months ago. He didn't stop it because he knew it would eventually reach you. Drake froze. "You're telling me," Drake whispered, "someone has been setting up a rivalry rollout between us for months." The producer didn't deny it. That was enough. Drake's manager exhaled slowly. Who? Who is behind all this?" The producer hesitated too long. Drake stepped closer. "If you know something, say it." And finally, Kendrick's producer revealed the shocking truth. It's not a who. It's a group. Drake stiffened. Kendrick's producer continued. multiple platforms, multiple editors, multiple insiders. They've been working together quietly, building hype, dropping hints, timing leaks. They want this rivalry to explode because it boosts everything: streams, views, clicks, conversation, content. Drake's stomach dropped. They're manufacturing a cultural moment, the producer said, and they don't care what direction it goes. For the first time, both sides realized they weren't fighting each other. They were being pushed toward each other on purpose, strategically, by people who stood to benefit, Drake whispered. So all this chaos was a setup? The producer replied, no. The chaos was real, but the spark wasn't ours. The room went silent. Drake felt the world tilt beneath him. Kendrick was right. There was a shift. And the shift wasn't between them. The shift was behind them. Someone bigger than both. Someone working in the shadows. Someone who had turned a rivalry that never existed into the biggest story on the planet. And nobody knew who they were. Not yet, but they were leaving clues. And Drake was about to find the first one, by the time the sun fully rose. The internet wasn't just reacting, it was in full meltdown. The laugh clip, the studio photo, the fake track list, the rumor about the call. Everything had merged into one giant, unstoppable storm. You couldn't scroll a single page without seeing their names. You couldn't refresh anything without another explosion of opinions, theories, predictions, and full-blown hysteria. Fans weren't just talking anymore, they were taking sides, like it was a global championship. Two armies had formed. Hashtag Team Drake, hashtag Team Kendrick, each one louder than the other. Each one absolutely convinced they were on the winning side. Some fans screamed, "Drake been running the game for a decade. Stop playing with him. Kendrick's pen is too sharp. Bro, Drake doesn't want this. This is about to be the biggest cultural moment of our generation." I'm scared and excited at the same time. The call changed everything. Memes exploded. Animated edits flooded the internet. People made fake trailers, fan-made diss tracks, mock interviews, fake DMs, everything. The culture didn't just react. It mutated. Then came the celebrities. A famous pop star tweeted, "IDK what's happening between them, but that laugh." Still in my head, a legendary rock singer jumped in. "This is the most entertaining thing music has given us in years." An NFL player posted, "If someone laughed at me like that, I'd have to respond immediately." A massive streamer said, "Chat, mark my words, we're witnessing history." But the biggest shock came when a legendary hip-hop icon, someone older, respected, untouchable, tweeted, both of them being played. Watch closely. This isn't what you think it is. Millions of people paused. What does that mean? Played by who? Who's manipulating what? And just like that, theories exploded again. Some fans thought it was labels. Others said it was streaming platforms. Others insisted it was influencers. Others said it was media companies. Nobody agreed, but everyone was hooked. Meanwhile, news outlets were scrambling. Every major headline screamed with urgency. Kendrick vs. Drake rivalry escalates overnight. The call, what we know so far. Industry figures react to mysterious leaks. Anonymous accounts stir drama. Who is behind it? TV anchors gave dramatic monologues about the cultural impact, acting like they were covering a national emergency. Radio stations took live calls all morning. Panicked fans yelling over each other about who would win a hypothetical lyrical war. Podcast hosts recorded emergency episodes at 5 a.m. You dropped breakdown and timeline. Videos every hour. The world wasn't waiting for the truth anymore. The world was inventing its own. Snake emojis, fire emojis, scissors emojis, hourglass emojis. Everything became a symbol. Everything looked like a hint. Everything felt like a countdown. Even artists who never speak on drama jumped in. A huge R&B singer. Drake looked stressed in that leaked picture. Someone check on him. A massive rapper. Kendrick's silence is louder than a verse. A producer. If y'all knew what I know, you'd be scared? That line alone broke the internet. People started demanding, what do you know? Say IT. Say IT. Don't start if you won't finish. Then someone leaked an image, a grainy screenshot showing a private industry group chat with 15 blues checks talking about the shift. Nobody knew if it was real, but nobody cared. It went viral instantly. People were begging for the chat leaks, hoping someone would expose the behind-the-scenes pressure. But the craziest moment came when a Grammy-winning artist went live on Instagram for 30 seconds. Just 30 seconds, and said, they're not fighting each other. They're fighting what's happening around them. Then he ended the live instantly. Those 30 seconds generated 50 million views in 1 hour. Drake saw it. Kendrick saw it. The world saw it. People started screaming. The world saw it. People started screaming.